Welcome to another Splatoon 2 video on the channel. This will be another episode in my Octo expansion Your Theories series, where I go through your theories on what you think will be happening in the Octo expansion. So there will be another couple of episodes in this Your Theories series before E3, and then I will give my final theories before E3, and then I'm guessing we will be getting new Octo expansion stuff in terms of like a new trailer, so that could raise some new questions. And then after that, the Your Theories series will continue. If it can continue at that point, it will be interesting to see what we will be getting at E3, and I will be making my own predictions in a separate video for what we could be getting at E3 in terms of the Octo expansion. But let's get into more of your final boss theories for the Octo expansion, and the first theory is related to maybe the creator of the lab being the final boss in the Octo expansion. The first theory of this video comes in from Spooker. I feel like the boss would be the creator of the lab. I don't necessarily have an idea of what the boss will look like, but the mission of Octo expansion is finding out who made the lab and why. Laser says, I think the final boss would be the scientist that changed Inklings into Octolings. Nanny the Fact, apologies if I have pronounced your name wrong, but their theory is, do we know who is responsible for all of the experiments? If not, that could be our final boss. The question is, who would it be? I'm crazy for thinking Dr. Coyle. That would be crossing over two games. Now, Dr. Coyle is a playable character in the Switch game ARMS. Now, Nintendo haven't done a crossover yet between their other games and Splatoon. So for that reason alone, I don't think the final boss will be Dr. Coyle. I think what Nintendo want to do with Splatoon is keep the lore separate from their other IPs. So unfortunately, although this theory would be cool if it was Dr. Coyle, and it would definitely make sense, I don't think this crossover will happen, unfortunately. Hugh War, apologies if I have pronounced your name wrong. I really do like your name, by the way. Your second name is Hugh backwards, so it is W-U-H. So apologies if I have pronounced your name wrong, but their theory is, I think the final boss has to be whoever created the test facilities. So I think it has to be someone or something entirely new to the Splatoon series. And yeah, I really do like this theory of maybe the final boss being the creator of the lab. I think this is a plausible theory, and I think it would be cool if it was the creator of the lab, and if it was someone or something new to the Splatoon lore. I think it would be cool if it was something that did move on the lore, but even if it's not, even if it's just somebody else that did create the lab, I definitely do find this theory of maybe it is the creator of the test facilities or the creator of the lab being the final boss. I definitely do find this theory really interesting, and I wouldn't be opposed if this was actually happening within the Octo expansion. I wouldn't be opposed if this did turn out to be true. If you guys who did suggest that it would be the creator of the lab, I wouldn't be opposed if you guys were eventually right. So yeah, the creator of the lab, that is definitely a cool theory. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Would you want the creator of the lab to be the final boss? And do you think it is the creator of the lab? Do you think the creator of the lab is the final boss? Afro Muck Zaganite has said, honestly, the only thing I'm hoping for is that the Octo expansion takes place in the Squid research lab, and the final boss is the guy who voices all of the Splatoon 2 directs. Now that would be really cool, but I think the last part is a little bit unrealistic. But maybe Nintendo have found a way to get the Squid research lab, maybe the lab and the test facilities, maybe they are the Squid research lab, and that is Nintendo's way of getting the Squid research lab into the lore and into the game itself, just because at this moment in time, I don't think there is any references to the Squid Research Lab within the game itself. It's only references outside of the game when we are getting new announcements. So maybe the Octo expansion is Nintendo's way to get the Squid Research Lab into the lore of the game. Candy Phoenix has an idea of who the creator of the lab could be. I'm just throwing this out there, but what if the final boss is a character that was referenced in the first game that has a connection to Captain Cuttlefish? We do know from information in the first game that Sheldon's grandfather, Moses Schellendorf, mysteriously vanished after the Great Turf War, and it is suspicious as well that there are posters scattered around the underground facility and the deep sea metro that resemble a more simplified looking appearance of Moses Schellendorf's face. What if the final boss is Moses himself? Now this would be really cool, and it would explain the posters like what Candy Phoenix just mentioned. It would explain the posters scattered around on the deep sea metro that do resemble Moses Schellendorf. I think I have mentioned this before in a previous episode, but maybe Moses Schellendorf, maybe he got brainwashed and now he is working for the Octarians, and he was the one that created the test facilities, and maybe the research trip that Captain Cuttlefish and Agent 3 go on, maybe Captain Cuttlefish had an inkling that something wasn't right with Moses Schellendorf, how he completely vanished after the Great Turf War. So he wanted to find out what happened to his friend, and maybe this research trip maybe results in Captain Cuttlefish stumbling on the underground test facilities, and maybe he discovers that Moses Schellendorf did actually create the underground test facilities. Or maybe Moses Schellendorf could be a greater Octarian boss that is more powerful than DJ Octavio. This theory is definitely unlikely, but this is a nice little segue into the next few theories that we'll be discussing, that maybe the final boss for the Octo expansion could be a greater Octarian boss. Carson Bacon says in one of the Sunken Scrolls, I don't know which one, but it says that there is like the mother of all Octolings and Octarians, and the mother octopus cuts off its tentacles to make new Octolings and Octarians. Maybe the mother octopus is the final boss. Jennifer Williamson's theory is, well, this is probably wrong, but I thought since Octolings are born from one of the host octopus's tentacles, maybe that octopus is the boss. You kill the host, no more Octolings. Then again, I highly doubt Nintendo would do anything like ending the Octoling or Octarian race. I definitely do agree with that statement. But maybe they could do it in a way where maybe you have to stop the host octopus from doing what they're doing, but maybe you don't necessarily kill the mother octopus or the host. Maybe they could still do this theory without actually killing the host octopus. Laura Mache, apologies if I have pronounced the name wrong, but their theory is, what if the final boss would be a colossal squid or sperma whale who is responsible for the Octarians? It would be a plot twist, and it would make sense since colossal squids and sperma whales live in the deep sea. That is definitely a great shout. I could definitely see Nintendo using some sort of creature from the deep sea as a final boss, just because with the Octo expansion they have used a lot of creatures from the deep sea as passengers on the deep sea metro. You've got sea cucumber on there as well. That is a deep sea creature as well. So Nintendo are using a lot of deep sea creatures for the characters within the Octo expansion. So maybe they will do the same for the final boss for the Octo expansion. That is definitely a great theory. I really do like this mother octopus or host or greater Octarian boss theory. I really do like this theory just because this is part of the lore that hasn't really been explored yet within the game itself. Yes, we have seen it within artwork I do believe we have seen this within the art book where this was mentioned before. And like what somebody did mention before, this was mentioned within a sunken scroll. I do believe in the first game, it could have been in the second game, but this was mentioned within like one of the sunken scrolls. So this is part of the lore. So I think it would be cool if this was explored within the game itself and we did actually get to see this great host, this greater Octarian boss. I think it would be cool if there was a more powerful, greater boss than DJ Octavio. That would be cool. So I would love to see this actually play out within the Octo expansion, just because I would love to see this lore actually sort of get realised within the game itself. So I would be a big fan if this theory did turn out to be true. But like what Jennifer Williamson says, they have to do it where you can't kill the greater Octarian boss, otherwise that would mean the end of the Octarian race, and that would mean that there would have to be a new sort of enemy to the Inklings. So I can't see them doing it where you have to defeat the Octarian boss, or maybe they could do it where you do defeat the Octarian boss and then this boss sort of goes away. You don't actually kill this greater Octarian boss, so that it keeps the Octarian race alive for the next game or for future DLC. But maybe that is one way they could do this greater Octarian boss theory. Or maybe they couldn't do this theory due to you defeating the Octarian race if you do defeat the greater Octarian boss. So maybe that could be a reason why the final boss will not be the host or the greater Octarian boss. Now, Adriana Vale and Bobba Bun have ideas on what this greater Octarian boss could be. Adriana Vale says, I realised that the photo of the suspicious silhouette outside the Salmon Run building, some people theorised that was a final boss since it looked so similar to Octavio, only to finish the game and realise it wasn't. So I think it might be the final boss for the Octo expansion. Now I'm guessing this is the creature on the green sort of poster. That's just what I think you are referring to. Apologies if I am wrong. But Bobba Bun says, I feel like it would be the weird creature in the posters by the subway. I could definitely see this panning out. I could definitely see this theory sort of playing out within the Octo expansion. That poster, the creature on the poster, it definitely looks like a final boss sort of creature. So maybe this could be like the greater Octarian boss. But like what I mentioned before, maybe they couldn't do this theory due to if you do kill the greater Octarian boss, then that would be the end of the Octarian race. But like what I mentioned before, I would love it if this piece of the lore did get explored within the Octo expansion. So yeah, I would love it if the final boss did turn out to be a greater Octarian boss. But will there be a final boss? That is what Anthony Wu says. And Evion says, I don't think there is a boss. Agent 8's only goal is to escape, right? Splatter says, perhaps there is no final boss. Nintendo could have found a creative way to make it have no boss, but the final level will be formatted like a boss battle, given the concept of escaping as fast as you can. More truth. Michael Carbone says, maybe there aren't any bosses, all levels are just short missions. And Morella Smith says, in all of the Octo expansion videos, they have never said anything about a boss, so there might not be one. And there have been many more comments like that. Unfortunately, I just don't have the time to feature all of the comments talking about that. But maybe there isn't a final boss within the Octo expansion. Maybe the last level will just be a challenge for you to escape to Inkopolis. Maybe that is what will be the final level. Like what some other people did just mention, Nintendo haven't mentioned anything about a final boss. They haven't teased anything about a final boss. So maybe the Octo expansion will not feature anything like a final boss, and it will just be 80 missions and you just have to escape as Agent 8. But maybe on the flip side, maybe at E3, maybe that is when they will tease the final boss. But yeah, maybe there isn't a final boss just because they haven't teased it. or maybe the final boss is hidden amongst the stuff in that original trailer. Maybe the final boss is Agent 3, and I did talk about this theory before. Now, I personally would be disappointed if the Octo expansion didn't have a final boss. I know a lot of people are disappointed with the final boss battle with the single player with Splatoon 2, with it being easier compared to the final boss battle with Splatoon 1. Nintendo had the opportunity to move the lore forward and sort of include some of the theories that I have talked about on the channel before, whether it be Agent 3 or the creator of the lab or Agent 7 or a greater Octarian boss or DJ Octavio again. I would definitely take DJ Octavio again if it meant us actually getting a final boss. I would rather us have DJ Octavio again than not having a final boss for the Octo expansion. I would be disappointed if there isn't a final boss battle for the Octo expansion, but I guess there is a possibility that because this isn't necessarily like a proper full single player for like a sequel, like for a Splatoon 3, because this is just for a DLC, then maybe there will not be a final boss. But I feel like there should be a final boss for this DLC. I feel like just because it is a DLC, I don't think that is a good enough excuse for there not to be a final boss for this Octo expansion. But I guess there is always the possibility that there will not be a final boss with the Octo expansion, just because maybe Agent 3 isn't a teaser for a final boss. Maybe there isn't a teaser within the Octo expansion trailer, and you would expect that if there was a final boss, then they would tease it within the Octo expansion trailer. Or maybe there is enough time for them to tease a final boss, whether it through Twitter or through a trailer at E3. But yeah, I want there to be a final boss, I really do. Now, there is one final boss sort of theory that I haven't talked about yet, and what I will do is talk about that in the next video, just because it goes nicely into some of the theories that I will be talking about next time. And pretty much what I will be talking about is Salmon Run, so that is a massive hint on what I will be talking about in the next video in terms of what we'll be discussing with the Octo expansion. So that will be what will be happening with the next episode in the Your Theories sort of Octo expansion series. But let me know your thoughts about all of the stuff in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts about that last theory. Do you think there is a final boss with the Octo expansion? Let me know your thoughts about, if there isn't a final boss. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section as well. Would you be disappointed like myself? I'll definitely be disappointed if there isn't a final boss with the Octo expansion. I would be really disappointed about that. But that is it for this Your Theories episode. I'd just like to thank everybody who got involved with this episode. Just like to thank everybody who left their theories in the comment section of some of my previous videos. And apologies if I did pronounce the name wrong, but that is pretty much it for this video. Definitely I'm looking forward to reading what you have to say, especially about your thoughts about the possibility of there not being a final boss. Definitely I'm looking forward to reading your comments about that. But that is it for this video. Just like to thank you all for the support on the channel. But that is it for this video. And yeah, we'll see you next time for more Octo expansion content.